So the Oklahoma Sooners are staying active in pursuit for an additional defensive lineman. Now, for those that are uninitiated, there are very much reasons why Oklahoma wants one more, and we're going to dive into that and give you some details on a player that appears to be visiting this week, if not through the weekend, that Oklahoma has a real shot of landing. So we got to dive into that. Before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thank you for pulling up to the channel. All right, so for those that are uninitiated, I'm going to go ahead and explain why Oklahoma is still in pursuit. We've been getting a lot of new viewers, so thank you all for pulling up. And because of that, let me give you kind of a background and understanding of what's going on. For those that have been around and have heard my rant multiple times, check down in the chapters below to go straight into the players' details and comps. That way you can, be excited and see some film. All right, so let's talk about first why Oklahoma's doing this. Well, the big thing for the Sooners is that depth and experience are critical, especially in three positions when playing in college football: defensive line, offensive line, and quarterback, right? Quarterback, since you usually only have one on the field, you work with what you want. You get what you want as a recruit and you go. If you have to go in the portal, you do, but most of the time you typically get the recruits you want, build them up. That way they're in your system for years. Similar in offensive line, but you can grab some players that are plug and play opportunities, especially if you get older veterans who understand terminology of football. They can walk in, make the magic happen. Defensive line, exact same thing. But with the defensive line, the biggest difference is it's really hard to find elite talent on the defensive line. It's very hard, especially the defensive tackle position. It's not something easy. Georgia made it look easy, but if you notice, it really was only Georgia and Alabama that really was producing that type of stuff. Occasionally, you'd see that at Texas and LSU, but it's really tough to do that and get somebody that's going to be super consistent. For Oklahoma, if you recognize and listen to any of my rants before, for the new people, and explain what Oklahoma seems to be doing, they seem to be going after players that have no more than 2 years left of eligibility in the portal. The reason it appears that they're doing that is they're just wanting to add experience to help their young guys develop. The ones that they recruited. They have that focus of our foundation is our recruits. We bring in transfer guys to kind of supplement, more so icing on the cake in a lot of situations. Defensive tackle, we started to get a little thin because not only did Jacob Lacey have to medically retire, but you lost Isaiah Cole, Jordan Kelly, Jonah Laulu, who all went off to either the league or went professional in something else. And so because of that, Oklahoma's now short in comparison to the competition here in the SEC. And so because of that, you see a lot of these defensive tackles being courted by all these teams. Oklahoma landed Dominic Williams, which was huge. We did get Jermaine Lole, who then decided to flip and go to Texas because Texas was also in the hunt for defensive linemen after their pantry got, pretty dry after their players went in the draft. So Oklahoma now has another target who is expected to be on campus. Pete Nakos over there at On3 had reported, and then I saw some of the Sooner beat writers actually talk about him as well. You got Aiden Huntington. Aiden Huntington, he played at University of Louisiana Monroe, and before that, he spent like 3 years at Kent State, 2 or 3 years. And he has one more year of eligibility left. The rumor is that he's expected to visit Oklahoma. He's done visits elsewhere. I think he visited Cal midweek, and Oklahoma's on the list. And supposedly Oklahoma really likes him. Now that we've mentioned that, let's dive into him, his film, so you get an understanding of why Oklahoma wants him, because he has one feature that Oklahoma loves in players that if you looked at him, you didn't think that he would have. But when you hear this, you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's what Oklahoma's targeting. So let's talk about Aiden. All right, so this is the thing that jumped out whenever you hear about Aiden, right? Aiden walks in here. He is about 6 foot, 6'1", whichever one you prefer, about 280 pounds. Right. Numbers sound a little odd, right? Sounds undersized for what Oklahoma should look for, right? Doesn't sound like it makes sense for this type of player. Well, there's a reason why Oklahoma wants him, right? So the big thing that jumped out about Aiden is that he's a physical freak. Like physical freak, right? I mean, I told you what his stats are. About 6 foot, 6'1", roughly 280 pounds is what everybody roughly has him listed. I've seen some 6'1s, I've seen some 6 foots, but this is what jumped out. He lifts 665 pounds on the squat rack. He bench presses 435 pounds. Runs a 4.44 in the pro agility, as well as a 38-inch freaking vertical leap. For context, at 280 pounds, he jumps a 38-inch vertical. LeBron James has a 44-inch vertical. So he's a freak, absurd freak, right? And we've talked about this. If you watch any of our videos over the last few, you know that Oklahoma has gone after freaks of nature. That's like the type of player that they want. They want dudes that are so versatile that they're absurd and they're absurdly talented. That's what they go after. So he started his career at Kent State, did pretty solid, transferred to ULM. He posted 63 tackles, 16 tackles for a loss, and 8.5 sacks last season. Defensive tackle. Probably 3 technique, a little bit of 0, but at 3, 63 tackles, right? That's kind of stupid if you really think about it in the context of him as a player. That's a lot. And some of the big games he had, going up against Ole Miss, he had a sack on Jackson Dart in that game, and he had some tackles, right? You know, he looked like he was good. Against Lamar, which is, you know, in their ranking, he had 14 tackles and a half a sack. 14 tackles, defensive line. And his 4 years total, statistically, this is what he had: 107 tackles, 11.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and 4 pass breakups. Most of that came during his sophomore and senior years. And so you saw some jumps sophomore year, and then his senior year, you saw him make some big leaps. And so for him, that's why Oklahoma's looking at him, right? Bolstering the line. So you've got Dominic, you've got Dejon Terry, who's your big guys. You've got Grayson Holton, as well as Jaden Jackson and Ashton Champ Sanders, David Stone. They're all building themselves up body-wise to where that they're going to be a threat. But if you bring in a dude like this, who's pretty freakish, I know you've been watching this film, it's pretty freakish for the type of guy that he is. Oklahoma's looking to add that type of beef and player ability, right? I heard a comp. Shout out to my guy Brisket. He posted the New York Times article where they talked about these numbers, right? 665 on the squat rack, 435 on the bench. But, you know, that he's been legitimately compared to like an Aaron Donald type, right? And it's more so because of the physical freakness and traits, right? 665 is absurd on the squat. 435 on the bench is absurd. And he can play. So if you're wondering why would Oklahoma go after a guy like this? That's why. They want a dude that is freakishly athletic, freakishly strong, that they can mold to go out there and terrorize other teams. Now, you've seen LSU go after this kid. You've seen, LSU, right? You've seen Cal go after him. A few other schools were going after him. And now that he's a grad transfer, as I mentioned at the beginning, is the big reason why Oklahoma wants him is there's only 1 year left of eligibility, which is huge for them because that means they don't have to be concerned with him basically being the dude replacing certain players, right? You got him there for that year, get the experience, and boom, you go forward. Huge deal for what Oklahoma's doing. So, want to talk to y'all about him because I think he's somebody you all should know about. Hop in the comments, let your boy know your thoughts. How y'all feeling? What y'all think about Oklahoma potentially landing somebody like this? I think this could be a big deal if Oklahoma gets him. If he comes this weekend, man, there's a good chance he's going to commit. If you made it this far, like the content, please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Love for y'all to join this family, college football fans, talking OU football, SEC football, and college football in general. Having a blast doing it. All right, we'll be back on track. More videos coming soon. So please, make sure you're subbed and all of that stuff. Get the notification bell going. And we'll talk soon. Peace.